Hello and welcome to the Super Rugby Aotearoa and Super Rugby AU review show. What is it? Rounds 8 and 9, I think it is now, of Super Rugby Aotearoa and Super Rugby AU. Either way, we are starting to get towards the pointy end of the competition as questions during the media session at the end of the Chiefs Crusaders showed with lots of with a few questions to Clayton McMillan about whether he thought they were in the finals or not, or the situation from that point of view. So yes, it is the pointy end, folks, and we will go through all of the 4 games from this weekend. And joining me to do so, it is Stephen Harris. How are you doing, sir?
Very good, thank you, Paul. Privileged to be on the show, mate.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you. And look at that, seamless. I didn't even mention that you were late and just turning up now. But
Glad you didn't.
I managed to bluff it. So no, don't worry, they don't know. No one noticed. So we kicked off on Friday evening with the Highlanders versus the Blues. Look, a much-needed win in this one for the Highlanders to basically get into to keep their finals hopes alive in this one. It didn't get off to a great start, did it? With the Blues charging down and getting a try within the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, early start. I mean, it's a perfect way to start if you are playing away. And of course, it was a great read from Jonathan Ruru, picking off a Aaron Smith pass, but it wasn't exactly a prelude to what was going to happen on the night, because that was going to turn.
Yeah, it did change, didn't it? We saw the one of the things that you've been active in our live chat about some of the tactics we've seen out of the Highlanders. Now, a couple of weeks ago, up against the Crusaders, we saw very much a tactic of kicking it long, wait for the kick to come back, and then counter-attack from that. Not a tactic that we saw particularly tonight. So again, change of tactics here. They mixed up their kicking game, didn't they? A lot. Chips over, really looking to exploit the lack of a sweeper or that gap between the tackling defence and the long kick defence. And again, Tony Brown having spotted something in the Blues makeup that he was going to try and exploit.
Yeah, good pick-up. They would have probably learnt a lot from their first outing at Eden Park, where I think they were probably a little bit guilty of trying to take the Blues on a little bit closer in, but this time they mixed it up. And when you do use those short kicks early, you do keep a defensive line guessing. And once they were able to get into the in behind the Blues, they were actually able to leave a lot of doubt. But I don't think the Blues helped themselves either, because the Highlanders, I think, also mentioned in the same on the thread, our rugby thread that we have, that it must have felt like Christmas to them when the Blues were actually putting a lot of kicks back to them.
Yeah, look, 22 kicks from the Highlanders, only 12 from the Blues. Actually, not as many as it probably felt like during the game in that one. Look, as you say, Blues not really helping themselves. Hoskins to Tutu. Now, we can argue about whether he could see where his foot was or not, but you made, again, another point you made was that if you're lying in a ruck, if your feet are around there, if you start waving them around, you're asking for trouble. And it's just you can say, oh, I couldn't see, ref. Well, just keep your feet down then. Don't lift them up. Pretty simple.
He knew what we're doing. It's a little bit like the situation where you flay your boot through the middle of a ruck. And if you're going to kick it out of the ruck, you're going to get penalised straight away. And listen, it was cynical. It was on the ground. There was an opportunity for the Highlanders to score, and it was the correct decision at the night. Listen, we also remiss of us to not mention losing Tom Robinson early in the game. Certainly wasn't a help for the Blues, because once again, I think it probably interfered with their loose forward mix. I think I said to you earlier in the year that having Hoskins Tutu and Akira Ioane on at the same time, basically, I think it's just you haven't quite got your balance there, and having Tom Robinson on the board just gives you a lot of energy. Plus, he's a good line-out source down the back of the line-out.
Yeah, and for all of the that the Blues weren't necessarily doing or playing very smart. They were still up coming into half time, 15-17. And if it hadn't been for them falling asleep just before half time, they would have been leading at half time. But this Blues team doesn't play that full 80. They saw the Highlanders had a penalty in their own half. They expected them to kick it out. So therefore, the covering back players weren't fully awake. It went over their heads, bounced out. The ensuing line out, again, a couple of players a little bit lazy, just player watching on the blind side, which meant there were 3 players marking one guy, and a big hole at the back of the line out, allowing Punavai to run straight through it. And a great, obviously, again, another training ground move where they've spotted that the Blues do leave that space there, and Punavai goes over untouched from about 22. I mean, that's a fair way out to not get touched, isn't it?
Yeah, and interestingly enough, Paul, you mentioned those 9 kicks. The Blues only kicking 9 times, but boy, if ever they needed a kick, was just on half time from Aotearoa Blackburn. For some reason, they decided to run it, and they obviously got a little lazy on it, like you said, and that's where that turnover occurred from. And then before you know it, the Highlanders have very good field position inside the Blues 22, and then the result of that is the try. I'm pretty sure if the Blues had gone into half time with a 17-15 lead, it reads a heck of a lot better than 22-17 behind.
Yep, exactly. And so you're suddenly there, you're thinking, okay, yes, the Highlanders got a lead, but they've got a lead off the back of that silly yellow card and the players falling asleep. The Blues, I say, maybe not playing the most intelligent rugby, but still, their power is just hard to overcome in whoever you are, really. And the more silly mistakes like that, moments. And I think we'll hear later on from Razor Robinson. I've got the video of the post-match interviews where he talks about moments, and he came to that one. Again, the Blues go close and had a good start the second half. Papuli, he can't quite hold on to a wide pass. There's a couple of breaks by Caleb Clark and Rico Iwani, but there aren't the supporting players there to finish it off. Interesting that we saw a lot of early changes, a lot of use of the bench early in the second half, which I thought, are there quite a lot of fatigued players at this stage of the season, do you think, Stephen?
Yeah, I think hence a couple of the squads, and we'll get to the Crusaders a little bit later. They rested a couple of personnel. You can see that the Blues forwards, obviously there's injuries that probably more or less affected them at the moment, and of course they'll suffer even a little bit more with suspension as well. But we'll get to that very shortly, no doubt, Paul. So yeah, there's a little bit of fatigue, but on saying that, you kind of look at it, and we'll get to the Chiefs later. You look at some teams that really have had to pick themselves off the floor to get back in this competition, where the Blues have got off to a good enough start, but they just haven't really. It's almost like they've plateaued, and they just haven't found the level. If you look at their last 3 outings, which basically reads a couple of losses and an unconvincing win against the Hurricanes, they haven't exactly set the world on fire, Paul.
No, they haven't. But even was it a sign of a championship side when you're not playing well, you still win? And they were close to. I don't know. A lot of people say that I'm getting being told for being too soft on or too good on the Blues by saying, look, they're a yellow card, a silly lifted foot, falling asleep at half time, away from winning this game, even though they weren't playing well. So. There's a lot more that can come from this Blues. Will it? We'll have to wait and see. But the Highlanders, to their credit, look, weathered that early second half storm again. Aaron Smith pulling the strings, really is playing in some fine form at the moment. Nocturnal Rights puts Aaron Smith the greatest half of all time. There's a few South Africans that might disagree, but yeah, he's in the conversation definitely. We had that the Hunt ship through that got that got blocked, and suddenly they're up 30-24. Then Hodgman, what's he doing? Second tackler, he drops his arm, he jumps up, and he couldn't have got much higher if he tried. And his arm's nowhere near wrapping. I was chatting with someone. They're like, "Oh, it's a bit like the Sonny Bill Williams one in the Lions." So no. There's no kind of thing of, oh, he was trying to wrap, but there's a player his own players in the way, so he couldn't wrap. No, sorry, there was no attempt to wrap at all in this one. Yep.
Yeah, like I say, there were no mitigating circumstances. To my way of thinking, the player was already going down on the tackle. The tackler had already done his job. He would have actually been better off just slowing his arrival down and going in as the first player in to pilfer. That would have been far more useful. And to be honest, it really pretty much put to bed any chances that the Blues had of maybe pulling something out of the fire. Really interesting, they pull. They look the Blues look very generic in everything that they do. You know, where they've actually got pods, players arriving for the clean out, but you just don't see the continuity that you're seeing from the Highlanders, and like I say, we'll get to the Chiefs. These guys, you know, you see the support players. They want to get there and support the ball carrier. Then they're just arriving in numbers, and at times the Blues are just not getting enough numbers to break down.
Yeah, true. Now, apparently, Kane Haynes has come out on Facebook defending Hodgman, saying he was taking defensive posture. I'm not sure the last time jumping into somebody is considered a defensive posture. Sorry, mate. Look, I know Kane Haynes is trying to make a media career at the moment, but I'm not a great fan of some of his takes as a pundit. I've not been the most, and I've not been impressed by some of his takes, especially around the player welfare side of things. For someone who has had to retire due to concussion, and we've got a player here jumping in and smashing someone's head, not sorry, mate, but no, I'm not buying that one.
Yeah, cool. And, you know, some of the stuff they're doing is just lazy, a little bit like the Hoskins Satutu action. He lifted his leg. He knew what he was doing. Now Hodgman must have known what he was doing. He had time to adjust, and there was absolutely no adjustment. It was lazy.
Yep. Now, as we're talking about cards, look, there was an incident with two players putting hands in each other's faces. Personally, I think they should have both walked with yellow cards at least, potentially reds for being contact with the eye area. We've seen players in Europe get red carded for much less. The props with I think it was Ethan Groots, and I've forgotten who the Blues player was now that was doing that. But yes. Look, as soon as you put your hands up anywhere near someone's face, you're asking for trouble. Now, look, there's a big difference between a handoff when you're running with the ball and a flat handoff to someone's face. That's different to when you're both standing up after a scrum or a ruck and doing handbags. So yeah, to me, definitely should have been cards there for both teams. Collins and Scott Gregory very unfortunately limping around at the end of this one. But those two guys, it's good seeing them getting used much more in their natural positions and playing well this season. So
Paul, I'm really glad you mentioned Michael Collins, because he was a much maligned player by some quarters up here in Auckland when he was at the Blues. But I've always thought he was a midfielder. We're obviously seeing the very, very much the same with Scott Gregory, and you know, these two guys closer in are actually showing what they can do and what they're capable of. And I think for Michael Collins getting a try at the end there, that must have been really gratifying or really pleasing for him to score against his old team.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, Satutu bashed over late on to save the Blues blushers and to get them a losing bonus point But as Aaron says here, the Blues used to play continuity again. They're just playing static now. And yes, they are. They've got some big runners there, but quite often they're static when they're collecting the ball. Now, because they're powerful runners, they're quite often getting over the gain line. But the problem is they could be doing so much more. And I think that's our biggest frustration here with the Blues, is they could be doing so much better.
Interestingly enough, if we think back to that early round when the Blues played the Highlanders at Eden Park, Clark Dermody, the forward coach for the Highlanders, accused the Blues of being a South African side. We all thought at the time, you don't know what you're talking about. But boy, there are elements of the way that they play are very much like a South African side. They obviously try to bash you or bully you up front, but on saying that, too much smaller packs have stood up to them in recent times. The Chiefs being one, and also the to be fair, I thought the Hurricanes were much improved against the Blues in and around their forwards. And you listen, the Highlanders, they left it all out there. And if you collectively go through the players that played well in that Highlanders team, boy, and let's not forget they got a lot of injuries as well. Well, Paul, guys like Frizzell, well, he's just absolutely playing out of his skin and just inspiring the rest of his teams. But if you look at the amount of work even their front row got through, was just amazing. Siate Tokalahi got through a lot of work, and of course maybe one to watch in the future, Ethan de Groot. And I know on Facebook you had a mention today. Maybe it's time to talk to Dale McLeod again, and get a bit more goss on this young fella, because he definitely looks promising. And boy, I think there was one particular scrum he got one over Nepo Lalala. Now that's no mean feat. We all know Nepo Lalala is a very, very good scrummager. So here's a young guy that's on the rise again. And once again, looking into their locks, their starting locks, that was Dixon and Bryn Evans, to me, has been a revelation. And boy, if there was some humble pie sitting here, I'd actually be eating it right now, because he's actually been a real revelation. I thought he might have been a bit past it, but he's shown his experience. So collectively, that pack played really well. There were some Blues players that went in fits and starts. I thought Sam Darry, for a young guy, can only get better and better. Let's not forget he's only 20. But I thought he was worth his start. Gerard Teoti Kauli was, once again, I thought he was very good. And I thought probably not his best game from Dalton Papali, but once again, he puts a lot of energy in. But, after that, you're really scratching your head, Paul, in that Blues pack, to see who played really well. Certainly, to me, they were outplayed on the night.
Yeah, I'm not so much saying is Sotutu in danger of losing his All Black spot to Jacobson. I think Sotutu is definitely a fringe at best All Black squad member. So yeah, absolutely, of course he is. He's definitely nowhere near guaranteed an All Black spot by a long shot. There's a whole bunch of players that are fighting it out. Yes, he is. So I wouldn't even to say he's got a spot. I think is perhaps is a tad presumptuous. In all honesty.
Yeah, and I think also the Highlanders, when you consider some of the injuries that they've picked up along the way, it's certainly not the strongest midfield they've got out on the paddock at this time. Using Scott Gregory around, that's probably going to be annoying, because he's just coming onto his game as well. But one thing I do know, they've got to have Mitch Hunt and Josh Ioane on the paddock at the same time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're totally right. So good win by the Highlanders. Still in with an outside shout of making it into the finals. They currently sit in fourth place, but there's only 2 points between second and fourth. So it's all very close for them, and they'll be so look out for them over the next couple of weeks, which should be a couple of cracking games from them, I expect.
Oh, very much so. Paul, on the wrap-up show last night, we obviously, Ashwin and I did speak about the Chiefs Crusaders game, but we did revert back to the Blues game, and we just a quick few thoughts on their bench. They had Harry Plummer and Bryce Hem come off the bench, but to me they didn't offer a lot. But it also brings into the question, why would you bring another first five on when you've already got Aotearoa Black out there. You've already got Perifeta, who could slot into first five, so you're not losing anything there. So to have Harry Plummer on the bench is, to me, is a wee bit of a strange one, where you could have maybe a Jacob Ratavaimuki Nepkins, who played outstandingly for the Blues 20s yesterday, but I'm pretty sure the Blues could have got the job done without him. Somebody with a little bit of X factor on the bench. Even we haven't seen the likes of Zan Sullivan, and we know he's got something. So maybe the Blues need to freshen something up there.
Yeah, maybe something that I'm hoping we'll talk about on Tuesday evening with the Driving Mall show is the when we hear Clayton McMillan later in his post-match one, he mentions how he wasn't entirely what's the word I'm looking for, convinced or sure he made the right decision starting with Dane McKenzie and having Bryn Gatland coming off the bench. And I think one of the discussions for us to have on Tuesday will be, what do you want from me, Wrench? Do you want players like your Dane McKenzie, or do you want me bringing players in, say your Dane McKenzie's become, something like a Chase Aotearoa, who are good in broken field play, who are going to use the extra space, or do you want me bring players off your bench like a Bryn Gatland, who are a steadying influence and who can sort of close out a game with good kicks and pinning and good game management. So different ways of using your bench as depending on how you think you're going to be at that stage of the game. I think a good discussion we'll have on that one on Tuesday evening as well. Yes, do you want experienced heads coming off to close out a game, or do you want young, exciting players to give them experience? And how do you juggle that balance? I think it will be a good discussion for us on Tuesday evening. Before we move on to the Chiefs versus the Crusaders, as that was the second game of the weekend, I want to let you all know about some supporters special videos that have gone out over the last 2 weeks. First off, I had a look at the New Zealand's choice of sponsors. I looked at and had a talk about the choice of Bunnings as a new provincial sponsor after the fact that ITM and Mitre 10 had been sponsors of that. I also looked at the potential of Aotearoa being on the front of the All Blacks jerseys, replacing AIG as well. So I have a talk about that as a video looking at the potential new sponsors of New Zealand Rugby. One that's come out this week is the Pacific Islands get into Super Rugby. Why now? I look at what are the decisions that have led to New Zealand Rugby wanting or potentially even needing Pacific Islands teams into Super Rugby. And then I've also had a chat with Andy Rice from the UK, having a look at ring fencing and how that might affect rugby in England, not just for the Premiership, but also for the lower clubs outside of the Premiership as well. So we have a chat about that. Coming up next week, or the next couple of days, might even get it out this evening, I've had a chat with Yellow Cap from South Africa about how they've been basically playing themselves the whole time, and how they had 4 versions of the Curry Cup under different names, and how is that impacting the supporters' interest in rugby in South Africa, having just getting to play with themselves. We're seeing already people over here starting to say, hey, do we really want to see another version of Super Rugby Aotearoa where we just play each other again? So I have a chat with them, and that will be coming out as well. So that's all for supporters of New Zealand Sports Radio. The way you become a supporter is head over to nzsportradio.com and click on one of those articles, and you'll be able to sign up. Look, you can sign up for as much or as little as you like. The minimum is $1 a month, and that money goes towards the tech that we use to get out and about. And as you probably heard on some of Stephen's post-match interviews, they were fantastic, but unfortunately the wind did cause some problems, so we do need some new microphones for Stephen. So please do become supporters to help us improve our tech and bring you even better and more quality content to you guys. Right, that's the sales pitch. Thank you very much. Now then, the Chiefs versus the Crusaders. This one obviously was a very tight game, a 1-point win for the Chiefs. Stephen, I suggest we have a listen to the post-match interviews. If at any stage you want to make a comment about what they're saying, just put your hand up. I'll pause the video and we can have a chat. Otherwise, we'll listen through it and discuss the game afterwards.
8 points up coming out of half time, 6 points at one point in the second spell. You're one score away from sort of killing off the game.
Yeah, we did. We just couldn't hold on to the ball or put that extra bit of pressure on or get that next score. And then we made missed that line out at the end just to put that bit of pressure, and then they went down and got us for an offside. So, yeah, again, moments.
We're setting for a drop goal at the end?
Yeah.
Is it a competition? What's going on?
I'm not sure. We didn't pull the trigger on it. We'll have a chat there.
So how much having no kind of recognised centres?
Well, you hear that there. There was a question in the background. It might be a bit quiet for you guys about the drop goal. And he said, "Yep, we're lining up for it. I don't know why we didn't pull the trigger on it. We'll have a talk about it." So clearly, he thought they should have gone for the drop goal earlier. We'll have a chat about that during the review as to what were the. Actually, we can talk about that now, Stephen. At the end of the game, there.
I was about to say, I think from the leading up to that play, from what I recall, and coming in into the turnover, I think they were just basically trying to get it on the left, to the left hand side for a right foot drop kick. So it was just one of those ones where they probably went too far or just not quite accurate on the clean out in the story.
Really, because I thought it looked like they were playing out the clock and they were trying to get it down to so that it was going to be the last kick of the game and there was no opportunity for the Chiefs to come back again. So I thought they were trying to eat the clock up there. And that's why they were waiting to pull the trigger until time was up. But hey, that's I guess that's a different interpretation of what was going on. Unfortunately, Razor couldn't give us any clarity on that.
Is that help struggling with your setup and with your sort of pre-match plans?
Well, Dennis McLeod, good centre, but obviously with Listo Whanganui played pretty well until he got their head knock. We were pretty happy with it. Yeah, we'll look at the options moving forward.
Yeah, I don't think he was particularly happy with my question about the fact they haven't got any centres left standing. And using that. But yeah, look, that's got to be a problem, hasn't it, Steve, when you've got two makeshift guys in there, in David Havili and Lester Whanganui, and guys who aren't regular in there. You're trying to train them up as to what the role is, as well as trying to run all your patterns.
Yeah, I guess he's trying. I guess he's just trying not to throw any doubt. The last thing that he wants to admit that he has got two temporary centres out there, and it's sort of not a message that he wants to send out, not just to the media but to his own squad as well, Paul. But listen, I think they've been adequate, but I just think there might be other areas where they probably need to address, Paul.
Yep. So Stefansson, just in the live chat, wonderful media facilities at Waikato Stadium. Yeah, absolutely. We're basically in one of the spare changing rooms, folks, if you want to know where that is. And with a media backdrop there. A number of different. I had some technical issues, folks, so I used my backup camera. So the sound in this one might be a bit dodgy.
Some of your emotions after getting a close one on the Crusaders?
Well, I haven't been having close ones for the last 4 weeks, so it's not making life in my heart any better, but yeah, really proud of the boys. We managed to nudge ourselves in front and really composed last 5 minutes, which was really pleasing.
You talk about Damian McKenzie, clutch moment last week, clutch moment tonight, to ice the game for you.
Yeah, well, that's what he gets paid the big bucks. He's a quality player. He's on the tip of everyone's tongue. It was, we weren't totally convinced that we were doing the right thing by putting him up there. We know he's a quality player, but we were sort of going against what had been working for us the last 3 weeks. But I thought he was really good, and we know we've got another option there. It's a fantastic crowd out there. They were worth points to us. And we want them to turn up, even more than to turn up next week, because that's the critical one. If we get that.
I just wanted to touch on a point that he just made in and around the crowd, Paul. I know you've spoken at times about some of the disappointing crowds, but wasn't it fantastic to see close to it wasn't a full house, but boy, it was well over 3/4 full last night, and boy, they were noisy, and at a time where you need everything that you can get when you're playing a great team. That was a good crowd last night.
Yeah, look, they said it was 18,500, and I'll say even just me walking up to the game, I rushed over there after attending some club rugby in the afternoon, and so I didn't arrive as early as most of the media did, to be honest with you. But yeah, the amount of people around, the buzz around it was definitely higher than I've felt at that stadium normally. Not at the same levels as say the when the Lions visited there and played Waikato, played the Chiefs, but still, yeah, a very good crowd, 18,500. It shows you what 3 wins on the bounce can do to a crowd. It's just, but you can't keep relying on that to make people turn up. But yes, it was a good crowd.
But I think that's been brought about because there's such a good news story, having lost those first 2 games. Finally breaking that duck against, was it the Blues? I think it was. Getting them back to form, and then coming up with some performances like this. They're a shock, no question. They've got the Hurricanes at home next weekend, and then they travel up to Eden Park, and they'll come up here with a whole lot of confidence. Hopefully, not too many more injuries, and hopefully a couple of bods back on deck. But I don't think it'll bother them travelling them AR20 up the motorway to Eden Park.
No, and I tell you that most of the media people were thinking that we were watching a preview of the final. I think all the media were expecting the Chiefs to come second in the table.
Wow,
And,
there you go.
I'm still not 100% sure on what the permutations are, but I guess it'll go a long way to maybe sneaking us into the final.
Just on Aotearoa, Koi, last year he's just been immense around the camp. How good to get a moment like that for him at the end.
Yeah.
What will that do for us?
Oh, look, Naitua makes me pull my hair out. He's he's a different kid. He always sees the sunny side of life. He brings that into the camp. Sometimes I wish he'd been a little bit more serious, and he's on the verge of getting dumped out of the team. But then you see him play like he did tonight, where he just fronts up in some big moments, a turnover. That was a game changer. So he's a quality rugby player. Learned massively from the experiences last year, and is just going to be better and better.
You've got to say, I mean, the honesty there. First off, with replying to Dave McKenzie, that's why he gets paid the big bucks. It's kind of like, yeah, look, he is one of the guys who is expected to stand up and do these things, and then to say, oh yeah, our Coy's play really well. Yeah, he is, but hey, I nearly dropped him because he's not serious enough. He's annoying me. He's hard to coach. Wow, I mean, you don't normally hear that kind of stuff, do you, Stephen?
Yeah, well, he's master of the clutch at the minute, you've got to say. But I'll tell you what, he's been doing his coaching staff no favours, leaving these wins to the very, very last minute. But you always felt the Chiefs were a chance in this game. And in fact, at the end of the day, they were well worth their win. Make no mistake. I'd almost say that score probably flattered the Crusaders. If you think about the amount of rugby that the Chiefs played, and it was really exciting. Gee, the offloads and the hunger for players to get to the breakdown was amazing. And it probably wouldn't have been more emphasised than the likes of Luke Jacobson, who was just like it was like he was cloned, and there were 3 or 4 of them out on the paddock, and he was superb. Of course, there were others who were very good on the night. Obviously, you mentioned D-Mac before, but the way that their pack stood up across the board and where they'd come from previously. You think back to that first round game where they got absolutely owned at scrum time. Boy, that's a real tick in the box for their scrum coach, Nick White. He must be wrapped. And let's not forget that rookie second row, Paul. They are rookies at the end of the day, but they play well above their weight, and both look so skillful with ball in hand, and they do the extras. And when I talk about the extras, you think about Arcoy's turnover. What's that, Paul? 78th minute, 79th minute.
Yep. No, look, they've both been played very well. Both Arcoy and Vai, they've both been very, very good. But yeah, it just that insight that he's a bit of a joker needs to be more serious sometimes. The rugby is interesting. And finally, Brad Webber, some great points he's going to make.
On the trot up into second place for you guys now. Talk about the character in this team to get from where you were, obviously, even at the start of this year, to where you are now.
Oh, it's massive, mate. Like we could always see the character. Like we always knew it was there, and it was all about, I guess trusting the process and not listening to the outside noise, because geez, there was plenty of it. So yeah, it was about staying tight, and we knew that if we trained well and we did what we kept doing what we said we were going to do, not just talking about it, actually walking it, we'd start getting some results, and some of that stuff's starting to go away. We're reaping the benefit of it. So the belief's there, the character's there, and yeah, I guess the best thing now for us is that our destiny's in our hands. We control whether we make this final or not. We don't have to rely on other results. So happy about that.
Yeah, that point of it being in their hands now and not having to rely on other people is really important for them. And you get, and I can't remember now whether I've included more clips about culture, but culture is a big thing that's been talked about at the Chiefs by a number of people. Actually, yes, he does. Actually, goes on to talk about culture next. Sorry.
Spoke a lot before about culture in this group. Wanting to sort of get out of the trenches for each other. How massive is that kind of culture, and maybe what he's instilled in this team in his year in the job? How massive has that been for where you guys are now?
That's been huge. I think you can't have a successful team without good culture, and Clayton has had a real focus on that ever since he's come in. Not to say that it wasn't a focus before, because it always has been, and he's just sort of taken it with his own spin on it. I think him being Māori helps in a Māori area like the Waratahs. We play on an old pass site, and the Whanau out there. It's pretty easy to draw on some inspiration in that sort of regard, and yeah, he's been great.
So there he is, trying to not say that basically look, Brad Webber's been now a chief for the past at least 2, if not 3 sets of coaches, and what he's trying to not say there is that basically the previous coach has got the culture wrong. Let's be blunt. He's taken it to a new. He's done really well. No, he's taking it to a new level.
Warren who? No, I should.
And Cooper as well. Clearly, Cooper did not have the right culture in there. So yeah, interesting that that Clayton's there's been a lot of work in that area.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, and most importantly, in a game of all games, when you play games like this, you want all your key guys to stand up. You want all your All Blacks to stand up, and I thought guys like Talval, Luke Jacobson, we spoke about Tupu Vai before, but also his unknown partner, Koi, stood up, but Weber stood up, McKenzie stood up, and boy, Anton Leonard-Brown is just playing some amazing rugby at the moment. It's going to be a case when they comes to All Black naming is Anton Leonard-Brown and the other guy. I'm not sure who that is at the moment, Paul, but that's just really, really amazing. And listen, just a little shout out too for Nankivell. He's slotted in really quite nicely, given that he's only in there because of injury to Quinn Tupaia at this stage. So this that makes that victory even more memorable. But I also thought they probably got a little bit off from their forwards that came off the bench as well. The likes of Nathan Harris and Ollie Norris and Mafilio, guys like that, Sawakula and Boshier, who we know is always good for a turnover. But another player I just want to mention is Samasoni Takiaho. Gee whiz. I don't know if there's too many better carriers around in the game, running around in Super Rugby Aotearoa, Paul, who gets as many metres as he does. I know there probably are the likes of Frizzell, who's running around quite nicely. But listen, you've seen Samasoni for probably your last two or three years, and how would you determine how his game's developed?
Oh, look, his arrows used to be very wonky. Let's be blunt. I can. So when Sever Reese was the top try scorer for Waikato in the Mitre 10 Cup, going so that was 2018, I think. The Samasoni was up with him on the and they were vying it for the highest try scorer. Now, so clearly, look, he knows how to get to the try line. He knows how to. He's a good ball handler. He's always had that, but to get the accuracy and his set piece work has just improved immensely. And I think if it wasn't for that, we've got Cody Taylor, Dane Coles, and Mua in there. Yeah, he's unfortunately he's got a lot of competition in that place. It's one of the areas that the All Blacks have got a lot an embarrassment of riches.
Has Takiahua got a decision to make moving forward, Paul, in terms of international representation?
Look, he's still a young guy, right? He's still got plenty of years in him. But I mean, sooner or later he's going to have to. Yes, absolutely. I don't know what his heritage is and whether he's eligible for anybody else.
Yeah, he's Tongan.
Sorry,
He's Tongan.
He's Tongan, is he? Well,
Yeah,
well, I'm not quite sure how. I don't know how long his Chiefs contract is, but there's a good team about to kick off in South Auckland that might like him.
Yeah, you'd hit it right on the head. He'd be absolutely perfect. And believe you me, there are some very, very good footballers running around in club rugby at the minute. And I saw a few of them yesterday playing in the Auckland or Goodyear Ties Auckland Club competition.
Yeah, we're going to have a chat with you about that on Tuesday night as well. But apparently, Dr. Wright says he turned down Tonga a couple of years ago. And yes, just because he did a couple of years ago doesn't mean that he might not change his mind a few years on. But interesting.
Especially with the Rugby World Cup only 2 years away. That's the thing. How long is he? When you think about the hookers that they've probably got what your top four. You're talking Cody Taylor, Dane Coles, probably Amua, Copman. That's four, and probably only three of those hookers are going to go. He would have to jump over two of those hookers to become the next hooker. So, is he prepared to wait for another cycle? That's the question.
It will be, yes, absolutely. You're right. Anyway, we're about to have a chat about DMAC again.
Moments from Daniel the last couple of weeks. Just talk about him if you can and what he's doing.
Oh mate, he sort of speaks for himself. It really does. He's been outstanding this year. I mean, I think having a year off, like people's expectations of him last year, coming off a year-long injury, was just so big. And on an injury like that, it takes you another year to come back and feel like yourself again. And we're seeing that now. Like he's just being himself. He's confident. He's pulling trigger when he needs to, and he's coming up with some clutch plays now. So he's been great. So I think the expectations after his injury were probably a bit too high. We really needed to temper that a little bit, and now we're sort of seeing the fruits of him working hard through his rehab, and then giving him a year to get his legs back, and now he's just being himself.
So yeah, folks, if you have a long time off injured, we're looking, and folks are talking about Sam Cane here as well, that when they come back, don't expect them to be at the top level for a while. It can take a while to get them to return, is what he's saying there. And Dave McKenzie is now back as well. So I think good point there that Brad was making. That we didn't see the best of Dave McKenzie last year because he was finding his feet again. I think it's fair enough.
Really good feeling tonight. Big result, obviously, in 4 weeks for you guys, but it's a quick turnaround Friday. One of the areas you think need to be worked on heading into what will be a huge final.
Yeah, they'll be fizzed up for sure. But we still need to finish off some of our line breaks. Like I think we're nearly leading the league in clean breaks. So, but we're not scoring as many tries. So I'd like us to score a few more, and if we can do that, then we'll be pretty lethal.
Now,
totally agree.
So just to give you the stats there, the Chiefs 9 clean line breaks to 2 by the Crusaders. The tries 2 to the Chiefs to 3 to the Crusaders. So exactly what he's saying there. That a bit like the Blues. The Blues had lots of clean breaks, weren't finishing them off. The Chiefs, they're creating plays. Some of the things in our chat was they were playing all the rugby, but losing the game. And at the moment, that's it, isn't it? That they're playing lots of rugby, but they haven't quite actually got there.
Yeah, Paul, a lot of similarities to that victory over the Blues a few weeks ago. They were creating a whole lot whole lot of opportunities, but not taking them. And but like this game, they left it for the very last minute as well.
Yep, absolutely. Look, I've just realised how long we've gone already because of those videos. But I think it was I enjoyed hearing from those guys. Look, there's some more clips I'm going to be using on Tuesday night to spark some conversations as well, because there's a few comments, particularly from Clayton McMillan, that I want to talk about that on Tuesday evening. So look out for some more clips from that, and do join us on Tuesday for the Driving Maul show. What more to say about this? Well, I think the other point here about this Chiefs team is, look, Nana Satoro was the only back to play in the same position throughout the game. Once the Chiefs emptied their the bench, we had a new half in. We had Dane McKenzie moving from 10 to 15. You had Alex Nankivell moving from 12 to 13, and Chase Tia moving from 15 to 14. It was an entirely rejigged back line, but they still kept their shape, ran all their moves, and saw out the game. And that takes a lot from a team, especially if you think about it at the NPC level. Lots of teams, lots of coaches talk about losing their shape. Now, clearly, these guys are better than NPC players, and they also have more training time. But even so, to have that much change and to keep your structures, again, goes back to that culture, goes back to how well coached they are. I think it's a good sign for this team.
No, we were talking. Simon Hughes is asking if. So we are talking about the Highlanders time player. No, I think we were talking about Takiahua, the Chiefs hooker.
Yeah, Chiefs hooker. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, what's about the Chiefs hooker? Sorry. So yeah. So I think, look, that's. I think the Chiefs heading in the right direction. Jonah Lowe's try, I think they could have got the ball out quicker to him. So look, there's areas they can improve by, but they're heading the right way. Whereas the Crusaders, I think they've been off their game all season. They've still got good results, but they haven't been quite as clinical as they have been in the last couple of years. And I think a couple of things around that. Look, losing Enor and Goodhue in there is a problem for them. Plus, they have had a lot of change in that pack. Over the last few years. I think having a new number 8 as well. I think that's and then losing Cullen Grace to injury, I don't think has helped.
Christie earlier in the season as well, who's one of their better tacklers. Make no mistake, it's definitely having an effect. But we just spent a good time talking about the Chiefs and their mana. Well, they've got it in spades, because if you look at the injuries that they've had in Super Rugby, especially over these last few seasons, you just got to deal with it.
So I think one of the questions to raise was, have you guys dropped off? He's like, look, I think everyone else has stepped up as well. But I think we have to admit the Crusaders aren't at the level they used to be. I don't think. Moving on then to the Australian games, and I'll be honest, I did not see the first one. I saw the end of the Force versus the Tars when I got home, so I was driving back from Hamilton. Look, any particular points apart from the fact that it went down to the wire and the Tars really have stepped up?
Yeah, not a bad sort of game. I mean, it's probably a game that the Waratahs will be scratching their heads, wondering how they lost this game, because they were actually leading going into the last 10 minutes. I think they might have had a spread of 10 points. I think it was. Yeah, they were leading by 30-21, so they had a 9-point lead. But unfortunately, they conceded a try with 8 minutes to go, which was converted, and the goal kicker Milty kicked a penalty from in front, straightforward penalty, but you still got to kick them, and that happened in the 85th minute. But it didn't start well for the Waratahs. Lockie Swinton, who's got a bit of a reputation, for probably getting the odd yellow card here. Well, he started the game by getting a yellow card for a lifting tackle, and then of course the the Force put on a couple of tries to Robertson, and that was converted by Milty at 10-0. It looked like same old for the Waratahs, but they slowly worked their way back into the game, scoring a try and a penalty, which basically got back to the scores to 10-all after 23 minutes. But it would be the Force that would go into the half time with the lead with a try on the 25th minute to Kaitu, which was converted by Milty, and just on the 35th minute, Milty, a very good drop kick, and they set it up really nicely from about 40 metres out. I thought it was a bit of a long way up, but he knocked it over beautifully for an 18-10 lead. And then from there on out, for the first 10 minutes of that second half, it was all the Waratahs. They just were moving the ball a little bit wider and got their outside backs, the likes of Maddox and Newsom, the captain, involved, and they scored a couple of tries. And at 24-18, I thought, yeah, they got the winning of this, but it was just one of those games they just couldn't keep the home side at bay. So listen, it was a great result for the hometown fans. They had a really, really good crowd there, and full credit to them. And after that win, it actually keeps the Western Force in with an outside chance of getting through to the finals. But I'd say that's just an outside chance.
Yeah, look, I agree with that one. I thought it was wrong to get rid of Rob Penny as the head coach, but look, they've put in two fighting performances since he's gone close in the last two games against the Brumbies, now against the Force. Now, sure, they've still not got to win all season, but to have come back from being behind by 2 scores twice and to be leading going into that last 10 minutes shows, look, the Tars are playing a lot better, and maybe changing. They needed a change of coach. I don't know.
Yeah. So listen, they're spiralling in the right direction, and of course the Force during this competition has shown some improvements. They haven't exactly been, totally put to the sword by a lot of the teams. In fact, in a lot of the games, they've actually been in the contests for about 60 odd minutes, and in that last 20 minutes is really where they've been taken to the sword, so to speak. But the Waratahs, they are on the improvement. Let's not forget they are a young side, so we'll just have to see what they. It doesn't make good reading on the table, should I say? But listen, you can only really play what's there at the minute.
Sure, but look, the Tars have got a points difference of minus 143, right, which is horrible. Let's be blunt. But look, they've only lost this game by 1 point, and then they also trying to think when they lost. They only lost the Brumbies by 2 points. So look, they've only lost by 3 points the last 2 games, which does show a massive improvement over that. So yeah. Good to see the Tars moving in the right direction, even if they have lost Will Harrison as well. And it's tough. It's tough. It's tough for the boys from Sydney.
Oh, very much so. But listen, they have an opportunity to finish on the high. They finish at home next weekend, and of course we'll probably find out where the Western Force really are, because they take on the top side, the Reds, in Perth next Friday night. So that'll be a real pointer to how much they have improved. And God, if they knock over the Reds, well, that'll be the upset of the season, Paul.
Yep, no, absolutely. So that's that one. Then we had the game today between the Rebels and the Brumbies, and I don't think most of us gave the Rebels much of a chance in this one. But hey, they got the first score, but then 2 yellow cards really did not help them continue. Just repeat infringements, as the Brumbies had all the play in that first half, pulling out a 7-19 lead, and you're thinking, oh boy, this is where the engine of the Brumbies just grinds this one out with that set piece and scoring all those points. But to be fair to the Rebels, look, they came out really fighting that second half and pulled it back to 20-26. Got back within, actually it was 17-19 for at one point. Suddenly got themselves back within 2 points. The Brumbies managed to get themselves another score before the Rebels closed it to 20-26 in the dying moments. Look, but I think we kind of summed up at the end there. They attacked, knocked it on, got a penalty at the next scrum, so got the ball back again, only to knock the ball on a couple of phases later again. There was just look, defensively they've been sound and very good this season. Attacking, they've just not had that. They've got the tools there, they've got the players, but they just haven't really been at the races with ball in hand.
Yeah, totally agree. And it couldn't be even more better emphasised by the fact that Marika Korobeti has not scored a try in this competition, Paul. And boy, doesn't that say something?
Absolutely. Yeah, if you can't get your main strike, if you can't put your main strike weapon in space with the ball, you've got some problems. Their attacking shape is all wrong. That's overly harsh. But they're not achieving what they need to achieve with their attacking shape, getting those danger players in space.
Yeah, I'd like to see how many clean line breaks they actually make. I bet you they're probably down on numbers when it comes to clean line breaks, because that basically says to me a lot of their play, they tend to shuffle it or play really deep, so deep behind the advantage line. I think it gives the cover plenty of time to come across and shut them down. Like you say, they have got some reasonable outside backs. You got Korobeti and Lamani. They're not the worst. Paul, even the likes of Stacey Ely, we know what he can do with a little bit of space. Cameron Magna came in for his first start for the Rebels today, and he's a big, tall, strapping second five. But this deep into the season, with only one round to go, if you're not finding it now, you're not going to find it. You're not going to find it then, and they are in serious danger of when they're going into next week, and they are playing the Waratahs, who are playing at home, who want to finish in the high. They are in serious danger of not making that third placing, even if the Western Force don't win.
Yep, it's looking a lot. I thought they had that third place nailed on, but yeah, it is starting to look like they could let it slip. Look, 12 offloads, and then 17 turnovers suggests that they're trying to push it, getting themselves isolated, and getting turned over. Is what it looks like. They're just trying to push those passes, trying to go wide too early, and just not earning the right. So. Look, the 2 yellow cards clearly didn't help them either in this one. Defensively, look, they're good. Attack that needs work on. Brumbies, hey, look, they're the machine. They're not at the level they were. Again, a bit like the Crusaders. They're not as slick. They're not as organised as they were last year, but still had to have too much for everyone. Pretty much than the Reds in this in Super Rugby AU.
Yeah, Paul, just for our listeners and viewers, it's the top three teams go into the finals, and the second and third team playoff. So that'll be probably a home game for either the Brumbies or the Reds. I'm probably still expecting the Reds to beat the Western Force next week, and it'll probably be the Brumbies versus either the Western Force or the Rebels at home for the right to play, or the Reds if the Reds lose. I'm picking the Reds to beat the Force. I'm picking to be one Reds, Brumbies second. And you know what? I reckon the Warriors are going to throw the kitchen sink in their final game, and I reckon the Western Force will grab that third spot, which will be a pretty amazing achievement.
That'll be fantastic.
And I will say to our listeners and viewers, I'm on a roll at the moment. Haven't quite checked my lotto ticket, but hey, if you see me in a new studio tomorrow, you'll know.
He's got that. So there you go, folks. That's the games from the weekend. I had to. Sorry that we perhaps rushed through the Australian ones a little bit there at the end there. But look, I didn't get to see one of them because I was on the road at the time, unfortunately, and there's no highlights available on Sky, unfortunately. Or if there is, I couldn't find them. They don't make it the easiest. It's not the easiest interface in the world to try and find the show that you want. Stephen, thank you very much for your time. And everyone, do join us again on Tuesday evening for the Driving Maul show. And don't forget all of those supporter special shows I mentioned. Head over to NZ Sport Radio sports.com to get those. And I'll be back tomorrow morning with a morning sports briefing at 7 a.m.